Friends of the Rocky Cast, I just experienced one of the most amazing moments of synchronicity involving Vince Lombardi. This is episode 3 of my continuing series on the work, life, and spirituality of Vince Lombardi. And I just experienced something that I never thought that I would experience. And it totally is life-changing. And it involves the great football coach, the Bible, and his favorite verse. And I'll get into that in detail. First, I want to express to you that this isn't audible. I was going to do a podcast today on the Jesuits and its impact, in particular, St. Ignatius of Loyola, and the impact that he had on Vince Lombardi, but I'm going to audible because I just experienced one of the most amazing moments in my entire life, and it involves synchronicity, and I'll explain what that is and why this moment was so incredible to me. And I don't know if this moment is going to be resonate with you, or whether I'll adequately be able to convey what just happened to me within the last hour and a half. But frankly, I don't care. You're just going to have to listen to it. And I just need to get it out because it literally just happened. In July 29th, 2022, I think was one of the most amazing moments of my life. And it is just incredible. And I want to let you know what just happened. So as many of you know, I have been studying the life, the philosophy, the coaching of Vince Lombardi, the great football coach. And why I felt compelled to all of a sudden start reading him, I can't even really explain why. Well, let me share with you just the series of events. And the book that I'm reading involving Vince Lombardi is the book When Pride Still Mattered by David Marinaris. That's kind of the inspiration for these series of podcasts. But this particular episode of the Rocky Cast focuses on Vince Lombardi's work and his favorite Bible verse. And I'm going to connect it to why this has such an impact on me and the series of events that happened involving synchronicity. And synchronicity is a $5 word, but that's literally the only thing that I can do to explain this to you. And it's been an incredibly divine and spiritual moment for me. So I'm going to explain why, and just kind of let you guys make up your own mind as to what just happened to me. So I've been doing this series of podcasts on the life and times of Vince Lombardi. Not new, other people have done that as well. I was not expecting this to be this sort of amazing, life-changing moment, but it certainly has been. So here's essentially the series of events that have happened in the last 3 days since I started doing this podcast on Vince Lombardi. The first thing that happened is I've been in contact a little bit with the Luther College football coach, a fantastic new coach. I'm so excited to see what he's going to do for Luther College, my alma mater. His name is Joe Trochet. He had reached out to several former football players that have played at the Luther College. I only played a year, but I somehow was on the mailing list. So he reached out to all of us, and I just written him a short reply back in May saying, hey, sounds like you're on the right track. I'd love to get ready for some coffee. He replied, that sounds great. I haven't heard from him since. So after I did my first podcast on the work of Vince Lombardi, Coach Trochet reached out to me via email and said, let's get together for coffee. Okay. That's kind of a coincidence, but is that just sort of one? No, this is just the first series of events in this moment of synchronicity that I will explain, by the way. I'll give you the dictionary definition at the end, but first I'm going to explain the synchronous moments that I just experienced. So like if your mind isn't already blown, wait, there's more. So I meet with Coach Trochet and we talk about Vince Lombardi and the impact that he had on coaching, his philosophy, his Catholicism. Then we, of course, talked about some of Coach Trochet's plans for Luther College football. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do for Luther College. He loves Stoicism. great, dynamic, organized, inspirational, basically it's everything that you could possibly imagine. And of course, I assured him that I really loved Vince Lombardi, and said that I would sort of follow up with what I'm learning in this great book. And of course, he had read the David Marinaris book, When Pride Still Mattered, but it really gets even more profound than that. So, of course, a key part of Vince Lombardi was his Jesuit education that he got at Fordham University on the East Coast, that was inspired by the Order of Jesuits. And I'm going to do a separate one to do more of a deeper dive into the Jesuits, their philosophy, St. Ignatius of Loyola, but in a separate podcast. But as it applies to today's moment and meditation on synchronicity, as I was reading one of the last chapters in David Marinaris's book, it's called Run to Win. Okay, run to win. Where does that come from? Is that just some sort of coach's platitude? No, it actually comes from Vince Lombardi's favorite Bible verse. And after I read it, I'm like, that can't be in the Bible. It doesn't sound like a Bible because it sounds kind of like coach speak. But Vince Lombardi's favorite Bible verse was from 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. And first, I'll read you the verse itself, and then I will read you essentially the whole paragraph, and I'll give a little meditation on it. And I'm still going to share with you this most amazing moment that I just experienced. It says, this is verse 24. Do you know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. And Vince, I think, kind of paraphrase this as run in such a way as to win. Win, baby, win. It's like Al Davis. So you can see why Vince Lombardi would totally love this verse. And it is. It's there in First Corinthians chapter 1, or 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. Read it. It's there. God likes a competitor. And then he says something along the lines of, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we will do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and make it serve me, so that after I preach to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. So I didn't really necessarily expect this to be like, I'm going to share with you my moment of Jesus. But I kind of am, because you're like, okay, well, so who the heck cares? Like, this is just a Bible verse and Vince liked it. And it's sort of like a lot of coaches talk about, the three things that they love: the faith, the family, and football, of course. So we just getting into sort of wild parables? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I think this is a good one to remember. But prepare to have your moment blown, your mind blown. Okay, so it gets better. So it's not only Vince's favorite Bible verse. So I actually looked it up. So I'm like, is that really what it said? And I did. And so yesterday, on the 28th, after having met with Coach Trochet from Luther College, which, by the way, Coach, you're doing a great job, totally supportive of what you're doing. Hopefully we get to do a podcast on this if you're listening. So I actually open up the Bible, and I'm not a big Bible guy. I don't read the Bible a lot. I do a daily devotion with Ruben Yendahl, who is the Swedish Lutheran mega pastor in the Twin Cities. I do it every day. But I did look it up, and I actually wrote in pen this particular Bible verse that I just read. And then I put a little sticky note that said Vince Lombardi. So you're like, oh, this isn't really that big a deal, but here's literally what just happened in the last 2 hours, and your mind is going to be blown. And maybe if your mind isn't blown, like, my mind is blown. So, I mean, hopefully your mind's going to be blown, because my mind is blown, and this moment is going to totally change my life. Okay, so what actually happened? So I'm doing my daily devotion, and I come to July 29th. This is after I had done these other things, with reading this book. I just finished it. I started on Vince Lombardi. And then I opened up the Bible yesterday and I actually read that, win the prize Bible verse. And then I open up Reuben Youngdahl, which it's Living God's Way. It's a great thing. You can order it on Amazon. But so I open up, there's 365 days for Reuben Youngdahl, and they all start with a verse and then kind of a meditation on that verse. Well, I open it up to July 29th, and here's what it says. It says retreat or advance, and the Bible verse is, and I quote, "Do you not know that in a race, all the runners compete, but only one gets the prize?" 1 Corinthians 9:24, Vince Lombardi's favorite Bible verse. I open to the exact page of my favorite daily devotional that I do, and it involves the very Bible verse that Vince Lombardi loved regarding competition, running to win. And then my partner comments that that is an example of synchronicity, and I had no idea what that word comes from, and she somehow knew that word. And all of a sudden then she learned, as she looked up the word so we could get the exact definition, comes from the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, who I had just had this incredible session with my counselor like a week and a half ago on the work of Carl Jung, and as it related to some of the things that I was struggling with. And his thing is synchronicity. So now I'm going to read synchronicity. This is a concept enunciated and articulated by Carl Jung. And here's what synchronicity is, if you're still here. It's the coincidental occurrence of events, and especially psychic events, such as similar thoughts in widely separated persons or mental images of an unexpected events that seemed related but not explained by conventional mechanisms of causality. And so here, I think, leaving open, I think where it oftentimes goes, that it pertains to spiritual discussions, as opening yourself to the power of divine and divinity and the Lord or God, the Creator, speaking to you about what your life's purpose is. And I just could not believe it, because it really tied into so many different things that I've been struggling with and thinking about that literally came together all simultaneously. Now, a lot of you are saying that this is random. You're like, "Oh, come on, Paul." I mean, what you're doing is you're creating the common thing that we do is that we read something and we start seeing that everywhere. And I assure you, I am not looking at newspapers trying to look for L and O and B and Lombardi or 1 Corinthians. I'm not doing that. But I mean, think about this. I have no idea whether this particular Bible verse is popular. 1 Corinthians 9:24, look it up, read it. You can see why coaches love it. I have no idea how popular it is. I have no idea, but what I can't just, why my mind is so blown is, and I am going to meditate on this for you and tell you what I think it means, and how I'm interpreting this, because I'm also going to apply it to the Field of Dreams, the movie. It's going to be about listening to your inner voice. But what really struck me was, if you think about how divine this moment was, I'm experiencing this incredible divine moment, a personal moment with the great coach Vince Lombardi. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to have a spiritual connection with that coach. And I feel like his presence is here because of this. Because if you think about it, my daily devotional with Reuben Youngdahl, my favorite devotional, by the way, one that I do every morning. I haven't told you that, but I do it. My mom started me on this, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just kind of a chip off the old block So I used to hate it when she would do Ruben Youngdahl, and now I'm doing it. So it's probably more than you want to know about my mom and me, but in any event, what happened is that I opened up this very day while I'm doing the Vince Lombardi, and just after I had opened this particular Bible verse and highlighted it in the Bible and put a sticky note on there. And then on this day, it's this Run to Win Bible verse. And it's very good because it does apply to so much of our lives, which is, I think a lot of times when we're stressed or we make mistakes, we kind of retreat. But the point of this particular passage that Ruben Youngdahl is talking about is that no, our gifts are designed to be used out in the world. That's where they grow. That's where they're fertilized. That's where they find their ultimate purpose. Because if it's just about us, if it's just about retreating and hiding, we're not using our gifts in the way that they're supposed to be used. And Vince Lombardi used it in the concept of competition and using your own gifts in selfless submission to a greater good. And I think this is the same thing. When you're using the gifts that have been given to you in greater submission to the ultimate good of serving your fellow human beings. And for this to really come full circle with all of these seemingly unrelated events that happen simultaneously, I mean, what are the odds? There's 365 pages in this Bible, in this daily devotional that I do, one for each day. And on the very day that I'm going to do a Vince Lombardi event, the day after I met with a football coach. So let's just go through all these seemingly random, unrelated events. Coach Crochet reaches out to me 3 months after he hadn't even emailed me to talk with me while I'm reading Vince Lombardi, point 1. Point 2, I read this incredible inspirational verse and look it up in the Bible yesterday, July 28th, mark it down, highlight it, and put a sticky note there, point 2. Point 3, the next day, as I'm reflecting on the awesome coffee that I'd had with Coach Crochet, on the awesome Bible verse of Vince Lombardi, I open up my daily devotional, and it is retreat or advance involving 1 Corinthians 9:24. Mind blown. Point 4, my partner comes back to me and says, that's synchronicity in action. And we both discover Carl Jung is kind of the architect of that underlying philosophy, which I had just used in an awesome session I had with my counselor a week and a half ago. And I kind of want to fire my counselor so I can bring him on my podcast. There's all these ethical rules that prevent you from you can't be exploited. Yeah, I'm not going to be exploited. I'm a lawyer. So one day I'm going to fire his ass. So I'm going to bring him on my podcast with you. Freaking awesome. But all of these things happen together. And it's while I'm looking out at the cornfield, which I live in a place now where I look out at this huge cornfield, like I'm a total Iowa hick now. And that made me think of, what is going to be my ultimate meditation on this is, that scene from Field of Dreams, where a person hits middle age and he's kind of lost, and he finally starts listening to his inner voice. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Go the distance. It's all about listening to the ultimate voice within you and not fighting it, and listening to that as the ultimate source that God has given you, the divine creator, to live out your life purpose in a way in which your gifts are fully utilized and you can experience everything that your creator has intended for you. And absolutely, this resonates with me because, my favorite proverb is Proverb 13:12, which basically says, A longing unfulfilled makes the heart sick, but a desire realized brings the tree of life, or something along these lines. And I think that's so true when we're not listening to that inner voice, we get sick. But a longing fulfilled brings the tree of life. And someone like Vince Lombardi, the sad part is I think he was always running that race and never really got to really truly realize the fruits of what he was striving to achieve. He had so much stress and anxiety and difficulty that caused him to leave coaching, I think, earlier than he wanted to. But this was just an amazing moment for me. And I hope I was able to capture it for you. And it's kind of funny. Some of the podcasts that I do kind of bomb, and you've been Lombardi, I've been getting pretty good feedback. My greatest podcast so far is on Tonkat Ali and testosterone, so that seems to have the greatest resonance. My goal with all of these podcasts, in terms of what I'm trying to do, is I'm hopeful that what I've learned I can share with you in such a way that it resonates to your benefit, and that it's not just idiosyncratic as to me, but that you can take this verse, that you can take this podcast, and you can start listening to your inner voice, to utilize the tools, the skills, the talents that you've been given, so that you can reach everything that you were designed to reach in your own life. Today, July 29th, has been a life-changing moment for me. And I think there's a lot of things that I think I've resolved to do. And I hope that this has resonated with you in a way that this actually makes sense. But for me, it is just, I practically got tears in my eye when I opened up this passage, the very passage that was Vince Lombardi's favorite quote on the day that I was going to give a presentation on the beautiful tradition of the Jesuits and St. Ignatius of Loyola. As a card-carrying Lutheran, I'm celebrating the Catholic faith, and I'm hoping that a friend of mine who's had some disappointments in the Catholic faith, maybe, and you know who you are if you're listening so far, can make sure that those aspects that are so wonderful and beautiful of that particular faith, that you can hold those parts true to you as we go through on this life journey. So, I know this is a little more preachy than some of my other podcasts, but I think, with this particular passage, with Synchronicity, with Carl Jung, I am going to do a Carl Jung podcast at some point too, because I'm going to be reading a book on him that my counselor had recommended. But this is one where, basically I've really resolved in my own life that I am going to speak my truth. And I'm hoping I'm able to do it in a way in which it resonates with you, and that I can share what I've learned, and that it's going to improve your life, and that you and I together can make this incredible thing where it's not only what's good for us, but it's good for everyone. And I think that's what I'm going to get into my podcast tomorrow, is the sort of paradox of selfish submission to the greater good does not bring lack of individuality. It actually allows the individual to flourish in ways beyond which they could hardly have imagined, in incredibly paradoxical ways. And that's what the Jesuit tradition brought to Vince Lombardi. So infinite gratitude to each one of you who have made it this far, that there's all these choices that you have to listen, to spend your time with, and you have chosen the Rocketcast. Means a lot to me. I ask you to spread the message of what we're trying to do, to share this with people that may benefit from what we're trying to do. And I do give praise to God for giving me the opportunity in this platform to be able to celebrate everything that we're trying to achieve here. Not every one of these podcasts is going to be so preachy, but I just reached a point in my life where I'm going to speak what I think and share with you in an unfiltered, unadulterated, this is me way. No filter, not trying to be someone else. I am going to be me. And so please continue to spread the word, subscribe to this, give me positive reviews on Apple, Spotify, all places where podcasts are heard. And I hope you do get the opportunity to listen in tomorrow, because on July 30th, I'm going to be doing one on the Jesuits and Vincent Lombardi. It's going to be a good one, and it was going to be the one that I was going to do today, but I just experienced this big, exuberant moment of synchronicity that I just felt compelled to share with you on the Rocky Cast. So thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow it's going to be the Jesuits, St. Ignatius of Loyola, and Vince Lombardi on the Rocky Cast.